Hi, I'm Juris Doctor, Eve University. This is a short video about Undocks and how to use them. So here we have a Daredevil that I've fit up strictly for speed. It's not the fastest Daredevil I could have made, but it's good enough to burn an instant undock. So the idea of an instant undock is that you have a bookmark directly off of the undock of a station. This would be a trade hub, a local station that you visit regularly, and your exit vector can be either horizontal, as it is in this Glendale station, or vertical, as it is in some Amar stations where you exit directly down. In either case, the objective is to make sure that you have an aligned out bookmark outside of grid, which means more than 8,000 kilometers away from the exit point on the Celestial, that you can get to that is perfectly aligned with the exit vector of that port off the edge of the station. The reason for this is you exit the station at full speed, and if you don't have to realign before you go to warp, you warp out instantly. This takes advantage of the limited vulnerability window that you're given during the session change as you exit the station, in which time people who are camping a gate, or camping the station in this case, can't hurt you. You're already moving at speed. You can drift right through somebody who's attempting to block you or is in your way. But the moment you take any activity other than stopping your ship, you become targetable, and you can be scrammed or shot or blown up. So the idea of an instant undock is that you take advantage of those 10 seconds during the session change during which you're invulnerable to warp to a bookmark which is directly ahead of you, which does not require you to realign. Because if you have to realign, you're going to get dead. So I've used this ship just to burn a quick instant undock for this station. Now, how you use that is pretty simple. You just undock, and then you find the bookmark in space,
warp drive active,
and warp to it. Now, if you've done this correctly, you should go to warp immediately. Now, it's kind of unfair because I'm in a ship that goes 700 meters a second without turning on the afterburner. It's actually set up so I can fit a oversized MWD to it, but in this case, going, 3,000 meters a second with an afterburner turned on isn't bad. Now, I'm going to warp back and try this same thing using a mining barge, just to show you how effective this can be.
docking permission requested, docking request accepted.
So here we have a vessel that aligns far, far slower than that Daredevil or any interceptor. In fact, max speed, unaided, on this barge is 96 meters a second, which is pretty damn slow. So if I have to realign this barge in order to warp off, I'm dead. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to undock, and I'm going to use the same bookmark again.
Warp drive active.
And there we go. The handover was really quick. So what you want to do when you have an instant undock is you want to make sure that you are perfectly aligned to the exit vector so that your handover from the limited vulnerability to when you warp out is less than half a second. In this case, even for a vessel that this slow, you can see that I warped out very quickly. So we're going to try this again, just to confirm that it is working as expected. Now, there might be a slight adjustment because each time you exit the dock, once you on the dock vector exiting, there is a slight adjustment because each time you exit, you're up to 2% off of perfect. Each time you come out of the station, you might be a little bit down off of center, a little bit up and to the right, or down and to the left. You never exactly exit perfect when you're heading out of a dock. And you'll notice that this in a fleet when the FC gives the command undock, 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 and everybody comes out in sort of a fan as they sort of spread out when they undock. That's just because your exit vector is slightly randomized, but you are within 2 to 2.5% off of center. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to undock again and see how quickly I can get this bookmark off.
Warp drive active.
Now in this case, I'm limited at how quickly I can get to this warp out bookmark by the fact that it's not immediately easy for me to get to because I'm having to use a number of different bookmarks here. If I use my corporate bookmarks, I have a number of ones here in system. If I use my personal undocks, it makes it a lot easier because I have one saved, which is what you saw me doing just a minute ago, is moving a bookmark to a personal bookmark. This one here. So I have a corporate version of this bookmark and a personal version of this bookmark. And depending on which one you're using, and you should always have your own personal copy of any corporate bookmarks that anybody else has set up for you. That way, if the corporate bookmark gets burned, you at least have another copy you can use. But you want to make sure that you practice this skill so that when you're undocking from a trade hub, especially if it's one where you're frequented by war targets, or if it's a null or low where there's a risk of you being attacked, then you want to make sure that you're able to get out quickly.
Docking permission requested. Docking request accepted.
So we're going to try this one more time, and then I'm going to show you how we make an instant undock.
Warp drive active.
And there we go. So it is definitely working the way I want it to. Perfect. Alright, so the next step is, how do you make an instant undock? Well, the idea is basically that you're going to get yourself into a very fast ship. In this case, I was using a Daredevil, but I could have just as easily used an Interceptor or any other ship that's capable of going very fast. You exit the station that you want to set up an instant undock for. You align yourself directly off of the exit, as close to absolute zero, perpendicular off of that exit as you can. And then you just accelerate to full speed, turn on your prop mod, and burn in that direction.
Accepted.
So in this case, I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to exit, and I'm going to come to a complete stop. By the way, this is the limited vulnerability timer. It shows up here as a little circle. It's not always immediately apparent. But here it is. I've exited this station. I'm coming to a complete stop, and I have the station directly behind me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have my tactical overlay turned on, because it helps me to see where the horizon is, and I'm going to align myself perfectly out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a point on the horizon that is directly in advance of my ship, in this case right there. And I'm going to double click on the horizon so that I start burning in that direction. Now you can see I've clicked just to the left of the bookmark I've already created because I've already got one there. So there's no point for me burning to that same location, but what I'll do is I will turn on prop mod and you'll burn to that point on the horizon. And again, having the tactical overlay turned on makes it so that you have a nice horizon that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see to pick your vector. And then from there, it's just a matter of waiting for the time to elapse for the station to basically fall up behind you. And if you've done it correctly, the warp session change, I like to go into the warp tunnel, should happen almost instantaneously. It should definitely take less than half a second. And once you're there, you know, the station itself should just be a distant memory in the background. Now, one of the things that's going to help you to do this is to make sure that you have your overview settings set up and your overlay for sensors set up so that it's turned on. Because if your sensor overlay is turned off, then green anomalies, red anomalies, and bookmarks simply will not show up in space. So you turn them on by mousing over your capacitor, clicking on, and making sure that personal bookmarks and corporate bookmarks are visible. If you turn either one of those off, you'll lose your ability to click on them in space, which you can do actually just by clicking right on them and then saying warp to location.
Warp drive active.
But depending on the camera angle you're looking at when you first exit the station, it can make it hard to get directly where you want to go. Now, one thing that's really good to note is that you don't need instant undocks for Citadels. The reason for that is that Citadels have a docking ring in which you are tethered and you are safe from being engaged. You're basically treated as having the same invulnerability as the Citadel itself, as well as being repped and being bonused for capacitor. Basically, you're being capped chained by the station so that you are, you know, your modules are being repaired, your drones are being repaired, your shield is being boosted, you're receiving capacitor. You're basically not only invulnerable, but super buffed when you're being tethered. However, if you target another ship, that tethering is blocked. Now, when it comes to landing at a Citadel, you definitely want to make sure that you have an instant dock. And how this differs from the instant undock is that when you warp to 0 at a station, you will end up at the edge of the docking perimeter. And I'll give you an example of that by warping to the Gravity Well station here in Boyston.
Warp drive active.
So if I warp to 0, and this ship's pretty quick, I'm going to end at the edge of the docking perimeter, this blue dotted line that surrounds the Fortizar. But if I go back to one of my other bookmarks,
Warp drive active.
and then I warp back,
Warp drive active.
one of the advantages here is that having an insta-dock, and you can go directly above or directly below a Citadel. In this case, I've gone directly above. It will park me directly on top of the Citadel, so that there is very little chance, if any, that I will get bumped out of the docking range. And there's very, very little chance that I will be engaged, because basically I'm sitting right on top of the Citadel's defenses. So this is something that you definitely want to make sure that you have, because as long as you land within the docking ring perimeter and not at the periphery of it, you're pretty safe. And now all I need to do is dock.
Request accepted.
So that's it. That is using instant undocks and using instant docks. I hope you enjoyed this short video. Thanks very much.